Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ice Cold Takes podcast. I'm your host, Joey DeMeglio, and this week I'm here with Matthew Mugno, Mugsy. He's here from PuckTalkCS, and he's my special guest this week. Phil could not make it this week; he's under the weather, so hope he feels better. But Mugsy, welcome back to the show. What's going on, man?
Everything's great. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving, and obviously things are better when the Rangers start to trend upward. A lot of snow today, day we're recording here, so was out and about for a little bit, out in the cold, but nice to hop on here and talk to you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has been. So you're over broadcasting for RPI now. Tell me, how's that
Mhm.
going for you?
It's great. New head coach, one of the most sought out hires in the nation. Uh, it's a day-to-day grind for the team, but we've had a really great out of conference schedule. We had Boston College come in, Providence come in the same weekend. The ECAC, the league itself this year, after years of turmoil with recruiting after COVID policies from the universities themselves, not just the athletic programs. Princeton had a player score a 5 goal game now about a month ago. Kai Daniels, Dartmouth, Hayden Stavrov, one of the top players in the nation, one of the top goal scorers. They're undefeated. Reed Cashman, obviously Quinnipiac has been up and down, but their ups have been really promising. Their downs have allowed other teams in conference like Yale, they have a rivalry with, to win some games, and it's been really great this year all around. And the ECAC profile, they have Pierre McGuire on board now. They're really taking the proper steps to elevate the media presence online. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's a good thing to up the media presence because that's like an up and coming sport. I feel like college hockey is starting to get a little bit more popular as the years
Mhm.
go along. And I could imagine as it gets closer to the draft, with all of your knowledge on college hockey, if there are guys going to the draft, I feel like a lot of people are going to seek out your input on certain players and stuff. So, I mean, having that is like a good one up for you, especially for your show.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, the what's really exciting is you get to see players on a sheet of ice and it's not a production. And I love the theater of hockey. I love, the anthem on TV and the shots of the players on the bench and the production staff for whatever network it is now does a great job, whether it's ESPN or TNT, even the ESPN Plus programs and NESN that run staff and crew for these college hockey games. A lot of times it's different staff, and yet they all come together and they make this show. But you don't get to see everything when it's within the frames and the lenses of cameras. And to see James Hagan's on a full sheet of ice, to see the way Boston College moves the puck, like those are the things that I don't think always translate. And it is different to watch a game in person. So I'm very fortunate to have the best seat in the house for RPI up in Troy.
Yeah, definitely getting that top-down view for you is that's awesome. You get to see everything. Definitely agree with you on that about watching a game in person versus, at home. In my opinion, I think attending a hockey game is the best live sporting event there is, and that's not
Mhm.
just a bias because it's a hockey podcast, but I just think that out of all the sports that I've gone to, like football and baseball and, basketball, definitely like hockey because you see the action up close. Like you see the boards rattle, you see the guys like their sticks bend, you see they how they react to when their stick breaks, stuff like that. Stuff you wouldn't catch on TV because it's away from the play. It's away from what the
Mhm.
camera is showing. So it's pretty nice to go to a game. Definitely if you're interested in watching more hockey, start college hockey and watch games there because it's probably a lot cheaper to go to one of those games than it is to go to the NHL to an NHL
Mhm.
game, especially if you're a Rangers fan.
New York market.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of Rangers home ice performances, they were home this week for 3 games. On last week's episode, we left off right before the Rangers were about to play the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights. That was a back-to-back set at MSG. The Rangers against those 2 teams, 2 very tough opponents. I mean, they held their own. They earned a point in both of those games. You could argue that they shoulda came away with 4 points, but, I mean, I'm okay with the outcome of those games, except for the Vegas game, because they were winning that one, and it just seemed the way that one ended,
Mhm.
that they should have had that game. We'll get to that one in a second, but I wanted to get your opinion on how they played against Colorado.
Yeah, you had the best team in the NHL coming in, and as you know, everybody knows this year is so volatile in the East, but across the league. You know, with the Quinn Hughes trade now, arguably three of the best defensemen are not only in the West, but they're representing three of the best teams in the NHL in the Central Division: Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas. And when you have those teams coming in house, I think with where the Rangers were at, and context matters, where they were at a week before then, where they were at 2 weeks before then, it felt like a different game. It seemed like they were a little more bought into systems. And I think this has been a trend since that win in Carolina around Thanksgiving. I think it was the night before Thanksgiving. Igor to play 7 games in 13 days. And it's funny, like people online were chirping at when I was, kind of hyping up Igor's play. And it's just not as common for a starter today. So yes, I understand. It's like when folks talk about back in the NBA defense in the 90s. Well, it's 2025, and Igor played 7 games in 13 days. And when you have a goaltender performing at his level like this in that time frame, and listen, it's no doubt, Joey, like the home ice thing was such a problem. And it's something that the algebra crowd doesn't have an answer for. But overall, I think just some character play, and especially against Colorado, like you lose in overtime. They had a few chances. Makar had a chance right before the McKinnon winner, and you're only going to allow A plus chances more than once to guys like that before it eventually, caves and goes in. So I thought the performance was great, and obviously since then, momentum seems to continue to build.
I feel like against a team with Colorado is finally it's been a little while, but it seems like everything's going their way this season because in a lot of the previous seasons they've been dealing with lots of injuries, like Landeskog, for example, right? Like he's been out for so long, going back to when they won the cup, right? Like losing their captain for such a prolonged period of time, and they'd have to, make moves to shore up that area, right? Like other guys would have to step into those roles. They had Jonathan Drouin in like previous seasons, like to fill in that spot, and then he did a
Mhm,
good job, but definitely not the same as if Landeskog is there. So I think they're firing on all cylinders, and to see the Rangers kind of keep up with them and play like a solid periods is promising. I would say definitely. I wouldn't say like the Rangers are, oh, now they're a Stanley Cup contender because they held their own against Colorado. I wouldn't say that. I'm just saying,
yeah.
like, it's a step in the right direction from last season because
Mhm,
last season they wouldn't even show up to the battle. They wouldn't show up to the fight. Now you're seeing that. And to your point about Shesterkin, like, that's how goaltenders used to play. Like, Lundqvist back in the day would play like 70 games, right? You don't see it nowadays because the tandem with how the salary cap works is a lot better for teams, but the Rangers have an $11.5 million goaltender, so use him. And definitely they should be using him, especially if there's back-to-back games. Like, don't be afraid to run him out there. He likes to play too, so it's like up his alley. It, I have no complaints about how Shesterkin has been playing, right? Like, it's just the rest of the team. Now, moving on to Vegas, right? I thought the
mhm,
Rangers had one of their better performances. I thought that second period they were that's like how they should model the way they play for the rest of the season. Is that
mhm,
sustainable? I'm not sure, but how they played in that second period was really, really, really strong. Like, they were constantly forechecking. They constantly bought into the system that Mike Sullivan has brought with forechecking. There's layers to his game, to his plan, right? And I thought I saw that from all their lines, and they were able to cash in on, what was it, 2 goals? They had
mhm.
even more opportunities. So, what did you think of that game? And then we'll get into how it ended in a second.
Yeah, it's similar to that Colorado game, and honestly, it's now in the hindsight, like, a day, 2 days after, you kind of take some of those thoughts about how they played, style of play, forechecking, and it's all good. Um, but this is a real flashbulb lead. And now, after last night's game in Montreal, it seems like forever ago that they lose that game in overtime. So, overall, I think it was good and it was model play. Uh, but at the same time, I think this league moves forward quick, and especially with the Rangers this month, they've had so many games and so many games against tough competition. But overall, I will say, speaking to like the style of play, it does feel like they are bought into more of this style of play. The parachute and chase, kind of dump style. We saw that a great example of the goal against Ottawa. I thought that was another game where the team played really well.
Mhm.
So
I agree.
it feels good because Joey, like my co-host Steve Murno on Puck Talk said last week, which I really liked. It's simple, but this team last year, or the club, it was like, oh, that was the worst loss of the season. Oh, that was the worst loss of the
Mhm.
season. This year, it's not that repetition and it's not a sinking abyss. There are games where it was like, oh, that one was actually, they played really well. They lost, but they played really well. And then the next night they win, or against Dallas, the overtime goal, you say, all right, that was a huge moral kind of victory for the team, especially on home ice. Then you get to Vegas and it was like, all right, they're continuing this play. They steal a point against Colorado with the game tying goal late. So, and from your best offensive player, most skilled offensive player. So, yeah, when you're looking at the trend, it feels like we're saying more and more. Oh, okay, this aspect of the game was a lot better in this game. Okay, Igor's playing really well. Okay, against Vegas, there were points where they had long stretches of control, puck possession, and we weren't really talking about that last season, let alone the month of October this year. So it's all trending in the right direction. And I think that Vegas game, like you said, that second period was model for this team.
Yeah, I would definitely feel a lot better if the core was a little bit younger. Like,
Mhm.
I would appreciate it a little bit more, but I see what you're saying. Like, you get what I mean? Like, the Panarin and Zibanejad, like, they're on the other side of 30, like, the wrong side of
Mhm.
30. So, having promising outcomes is not the same because you at this point, you would hope that they're more in the Stanley Cup, contender tier rather than the playoff contender tier, but it is what it is. I would much rather prefer this on ice product than what we got last season. So, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there. And what bothered me about the end of that game was just the officiating. Like, I try not
Mhm.
to get too much into that stuff, but to me, it was bogus. Like, the last 2 minutes of the game, and you call a ticky tacky coincidental minors on guys that have been drawing for the entire game. Like, you see that all the time. I think Brian Boyle pointed it out on the broadcast. Like, you see that all the time. They've been doing it the entire game. Why are you calling that right now? Like, that didn't make much sense to me. And it did have an outcome on the game because 4 on 4, there's a lot more open ice. When you pull the goalie, it's easier on a 5 on 4 than a 6 on 5, right? So
Mhm.
that 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 bothered me. There was a blatant trip in overtime that they missed. I believe Robertson got tripped and they didn't call anything. And then to top it all off, whatever official that didn't want to drop the puck until uh, the Vegas center iceman put his stick down first, like that all like snowballed into one thing where it's just like, all right, well, I guess the hockey gods didn't want the Rangers to win this game or something like that, you know? Like, how would you deal with something like that? That's so annoying, but it's so far like out of your control too.
I think what's fortunate for the Rangers was, listen, I naturally, Joey, look at things glass half full. So, and that rubs people the wrong way, but um, the player in the defensive end, the center in the defensive end, they should have their stick down first, which is correct. What was frustrating was dropping the puck. It was the
Yes.
third time they're redoing it. Listen, I'm not an official. I'm not one of those people that, memorize the rule book off the top of my head. Um, but at the same time, the Rangers were fortunate that that situation happens in overtime. Whereas, if that was 11 seconds left in the game, you lose. You lose any point, any
You
chance at a
don't
point.
yeah.
So right now you get a point, and it's in an Eastern Conference this year that, listen, like losing points going to matter. and that's been a problem and in common discourse for a few years now about the losers point, probably since 2019-20. But at the same time, you take it and you go with it. Now, also to state, some fans were upset about the overtime goal. Panarin gets kind of caught flat-footed and he's facing up ice, skating backwards. That was kind of the death sentence there with Eichel streaking in. I think when you have two of the best players scoring overtime goals against your team, and that's what put them over in back-to-back games, Colorado and Vegas, not back-to-back nights, but last week. I just think you say to yourself, all right, they're two of the best players in the world. So if that's how you can cope and move forward, okay. I know a lot of people don't like that answer. And obviously the Rangers, you want the Rangers to also have their players who they arguably have three top tier players, right? Adam Fox can be a top 3 or top 15 D man in the league at his best or worst. Panarin can be a top 3 to like top 10 winger in the NHL at his best and worst. And obviously Igor in the cage. But yeah, overall, I look at it kind of glass half full, especially I think it's a little bit easier to say that after some of the momentum the teams had, including last night. But yeah, I mean, with Vegas, you lose. Officiating was an issue, and as frustrating as that is, you still got a point on home ice, and at least you were able to split, which again wasn't the case for the first 10 home games of the year.
Yeah, so sometimes you just gotta tip your cap is basically what you're saying to like Eichel and McKinnon. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but I could definitely understand why people would argue against that. Like, you should be defending them harder or stuff something like that. I get it, but, you know, the best players are gonna they have they have to get their paycheck too, right? So they're gonna show up and do damage, right? Like, that's what makes them the best players. So what are you gonna do, right? Certainly,
Mhm.
there's mistakes that you make, but you learn from them and stuff like that. I definitely understand the glass half full perspective there. And what you were saying about points mattering, it is still very tight in the East. It's separated a little bit from with the division leaders. Now New Jersey's dealing with a bunch of injuries because Hughes is
Mhm.
out, and who else did they just they just lost? I think Simon Nemec, Timo Meyer's out
They
now.
also lost Quinn Hughes, and unfortunately for them too. So,
Well, yeah,
um,
they lost
you
him to
know,
Minnesota for from not being able to trade for him. The
yeah,
I don't think anybody was topping that package that
no,
Minnesota gave. Like, I don't know why people consider, like, the Rangers to be one of the top teams being I don't think they could come up with anywhere close to that package because
I agree.
Zeev Buium is a very, very promising, prospect. I've seen him play in the World Juniors. You've probably seen a lot more of him than I have, covering college hockey. I mean,
Mhm.
I won't say that he will turn into Quinn Hughes, but he's a pretty good prospect, like a pretty good, uh, future piece for Vancouver to build with. And then, of course, Marco Rossi, has been a up and coming player for Minnesota for a while, but it's a move I think Minnesota had to make there. Um, you had, like, a video, right, that you talked about this, right? So what were your thoughts on that trade and how that all came down?
Yeah, I like you said, I don't know if anyone's offering as good as a package to Minnesota. Um, oh yeah, we got a comment from Philip Salmon 8237. What's up, Philip? What would a Rangers package for Hughes have even looked like? Gosh, I said this yesterday and I almost thought I was foolish not to say some of the names that could have come to mind, but Alexi Lafreniere easily, I think, is on the table. With the JT Miller conversation, I remember 2022, they didn't want to give up Braden Schneider. I bet his name was in this conversation too. I don't think he has that almost untouchable prospect uh maybe label or perception anymore with the club. Like, I think he's really good, but something that's come up recently, like Steve and I talked about with Adam Fox being out, is well, at this point, even when he steps up, very good defenseman, very steady. Um, he can chip in on offense, but I I don't know if it's the player that they thought he was when they drafted him, or in the first few years in the league. I thought I think most folks, pundits, the two of us talking right now, the management probably thought the ceiling was higher or that there was more space there. And I think he is exactly what he is right now, at his age. So yeah, I think, names are flying in now. Another comment from Nicole. Flaba, Cooley, Schneider. Like, I think if you're the New York Rangers and you're looking for a lefty, which the club just doesn't have a strong left side, and you compare Quinn Hughes, who's won a Norris, he was the Canucks' most valuable player, undoubtedly top defenseman in the league, if not 1A, 1B with Makar. I mean, you're probably throwing the kitchen sink, but at the same time, is the New York Rangers kitchen sink of prospects, young talent, as good as the rest of the leagues? And the answer is no. So yeah, I don't know. I also think if you're taking Loft's contract, that's what, 7.5, and then with signing bonuses, he's actually making 10 million this year total. So yeah. Plus the Rangers probably had to navigate just like the Devils with no move, no trade, things of that nature. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll find out about more details about it. But it was interesting. I think it's a good thing that the Rangers were involved, and one of the names that was stated in Pierre LeBrun's tweet yesterday. But at the same time, were the Rangers realistically landing him? Probably not, especially what we
Yeah.
saw Minnesota give up, right?
Yeah, I'm just looking at like what the best possible pieces the Rangers could offer versus what the best possible pieces Minnesota was able to offer, right?
Mm,
Like Marco Rossi is a roster player, right? You're comparing
yeah.
Rossi to Lafreniere. I don't know. That's Vancouver wanted a center as well, right? So
Yeah,
because
Ducey. And the
he
Rangers traded Philip Hedl to
yes,
Vancouver. I
and
think he would have been your best bet, right?
the reason that they wanted Rossi was because Heedle's always hurt. Unfortunately, like Heedle, when he's
Yeah,
healthy, he's a good player, but he just gets
he
hit with the
he
injury
played
bug
6
all
games
the
this
time.
year.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate. I loved Heedle as a player. It's
Mhm,
I understand like why Vancouver made that move because they can't rely on him. He's to to
mhm.
to play because he just keeps getting hurt. So there's no, in my mind, there's no conceivable way the Rangers could match that offer. Like I would value Booyah more than Schneider because he's good already
Oh, yeah,
and he has upside. Like we
no
don't know
doubt.
what his ceiling is yet. Schneider, I agree with what you said that what you're seeing right now is what you're going to get from him. Um, the Rangers did think the world of him, as did I mean, I did it at first when they drafted him. I believed in what the Rangers were seeing. He's not bad, but I don't think he compares to Booyam. And the Rangers don't have any center prospects really, aside from Noah Laba. But I wouldn't say at this point you could compare him to Marco Rossi. So that I
Yeah,
understand. There's a good
yeah,
package Vancouver got for him. Good trade by Minnesota, especially because they're in win now mode. I feel like they've been like a solid playoff contender. Now you could start to see like maybe they could throw their hat into the Stanley Cup contender ring there. They do
yeah.
have a uphill climb. There's a lot of competitive teams in the Central. Uh, we talked about it earlier, but then again, every point matters in the league there. So yeah, hang on, let's see. So they aren't in contention window. Imagine they made the move and then walked to the Devils anyway. Yes, that's another thing. Hughes is up for a new contract at the end of the season, and they don't know if he's going to extend in Minnesota yet. So that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
Minnesota parted with all those assets because they're in win now mode, even without knowing if he's going to get an extension. So that's something you would have to consider too. And I'm sure like if the Rangers did have like a sign and trade in place, then they would have to give up even more for that.
I really liked what Bill Guerin said though in the press conference yesterday. First, he flew out to get him. Sorry, camera just stopped for a moment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Guerin flew out to get him. Pick him up, and then in the press conference, he stated, I think a lot of folks remember the Kevin Adams palm trees quote about players, where they want to play. And I think it was kind of badass for Billy G to say, it's about the hockey. If a team's good and there's some promise there, you'll attract players. So listen, I think it would really take kind of a tire fire for Quinn Hughes not to sign there. Although it was a trade, of course, it had to, he had to give a thumbs up. And you have Kirill Kaprizov. He just earned the highest contract, highest annual value on any contract in league history. I mean, who's to say that the Wall of St. Paul, Wallstead, if what he's going to look like? We've seen a really small sample, or like a pretty solid like Applebee's sample of him, and I've loved his goaltending. They've been talking about a goaltending prospect and having stability in the cage for years. They have that now, at least momentarily. So there's a lot to like there, and yeah, we'll see. I just it's funny at the moment. The trade happened yesterday. There's already that talk of like, well, will he sign with the Devils anyway? I don't know. I'm not so convinced because if the Devils couldn't come up with a package to go and acquire Quinn, then is Quinn just going to like flat leave up and leave if it's a good situation? I just don't see that. So I think it would have to be a bad situation for him to leave.
They have cap space this summer too. They will
Yeah.
have it. So they could offer him whatever he wants. So it'll just come down to if he wants to stay there or not, I think. And even if they do run into salary cap trouble, I'm sure they would try to make ends meet and do whatever it took to clear the cap space so that they could offer him more money.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Minnesota's in a good spot in my opinion there. Moving back to the Rangers and how the standings are right now. Carolina's in first in the Metro with 42 points. Currently, Rangers are currently at 1 point out from the Devils, who do have a game in hand in the wild card. Um, Again, everything's really close right now. Every point matters. This is a huge stretch for the Rangers. December, getting as many points as possible without Adam Fox is crucial to seeing if they're going to be a playoff team by the trade deadline. Because remember, they do have in February, there's that Olympic break. It's like 2 weeks. And then you have the trade deadline. So you're going to have to make your decision about where you are probably at the end of January, right? Like you should
Yeah.
have a really good idea of what your team is and where you're going this season. If you want to sell off assets, you could do that because the draft is a little bit deeper this season. If you want to make a push for the playoffs, I mean, you do have you they have 2 first round picks, I believe, this season. So
Yeah.
you could use one of them to trade and get someone that'll help you. You're in an okay spot right now. Would just like to see the Rangers play a little bit more consistently because that how they played against Chicago the other night, I thought it was a pretty lackluster performance against a team that's hadn't been doing too well, that had
Mm-hmm.
struggled in their previous couple games. So, I mean, what do you make of that performance there, Matthew?
I think it was almost like a trap game. You're going one night out to Chicago. I think it's what we've seen from the Rangers all year, Joey. Like their A game is good, and some folks won't like to hear it, but I actually think it's really good. And we've seen that from the team before. Maybe that's also taking in some individual player performances from past seasons and assigning that to this year. I understand that isn't 100% accurate maybe to what today is, but we know what Panarin can do at his best. We know what Mika can do at his best. We know what Trocheck can do at his best, Igor. But their B game collectively this year is bad. Like when some of those top players are not contributing maybe on the score sheet or at the best of their abilities, and maybe they're being defended well. Maybe they're facing tight competition. Maybe, again, the back-to-backs have been killer, like you mentioned, the Olympic schedule. But on the nights where they can find other ways to contribute, it doesn't feel like they have. I also thought the backbreaker in that game was the five forward power play, which
Yes.
has been a problem. And I know you wanted to talk about this too. Who doesn't in Rangerland? At this point, it's time to try something new. And listen, they've tried it. Other teams, it's worked. But when it essentially cost a game like that, that was a pretty back-breaking shorthanded goal to a 6'8" skater defenseman. On a goaltender that I'd argue is at the top of his game this year. It's it's tough. And it also contradicts kind of like you see those wins last week or where they're getting points and they're chipping away and they play really devoted and dedicated game, and then a loss like that happens. but also I think folks have gotten really tied up to the roller coaster because of what we saw the last few years, 2020 hindsight, with the ups and downs, and they feel pretty drastic. So I also think some folks, like, if this is the 2014-15 Rangers and they lose a game like that, it's like, all right, it's a flash in the pan. But I think it's also because this group has also shown that they are capable of falling off. And that's why folks get so, like, maybe frustrated, enraged by a loss like that on the road in Chicago. But I mean, at the end of the day, that's the way the season's going to go. I think you're not going to win all 82. Certainly not this team.
Yeah, the B game aspect you brought up is pretty cool. Like, I'm thinking back to, like, the 21-22 Rangers, where there were a lot of times where they didn't have their best game. Like, they would get shelled at 5-on-5, but then somehow they'd find ways to win games, whether that's coming through on the power play or Shesterkin making a big save or coming up with a big penalty kill and then winning in overtime. It's kinda eluded the Rangers, like, a good amount that when you need a good shift, you make it happen even though the rest of the game has been subpar. That's what I think could separate the Rangers. If they could get that back where it's like, okay, you're in a close game because of the goaltending. If you could have it where your top 6 guys, maybe just even one of them has a really good shift and pots one in, right? That'll change the game. 'Cause then you have on the other foot where you don't have a good shift and you let that defenseman score against you on a 5 forward power play unit, which I don't understand why they keep going back to that. I know I think they scored a power play they scored one in overtime, last night, but it's of course, it's a 4-on-3, so it's not the
Mhm.
same. Um, use different personnel. I don't think swapping Cooley out for Lafreniere is doing too much, but what do I know? They did score on the power play in, like, the first period. Lava scored, and Cooley kinda set that whole thing up. What do I know? But I think an opportunity to like Scott Morrow is what's needed, to be honest. It's and you were hinting at it. It's the talk of the town. Like, what are the Rangers doing with Scott Morrow?
Yeah, you know what? For a little while, like the first practice, the morning skate, when then, the tweets were coming out from the reporters that the Rangers were trying this out. I thought it was kind of an overreaction. It was like, all right, here we go. It's just something else. It's funny, Joey. I call it fruit of the month. Like, there's always going to be something that pisses someone off, or the fan base collectively. So that was kind of fruit of the month. Was like, oh, all right, here we go. For the tweet's been out for a minute and already people are pissed off, right?
Yeah,
Like, let's give it a try. Let's
yeah.
see let's
To
see.
c Sorry to cut
Um,
cut you off, but it's like it's easy to fall into that trap too.
oh yeah,
Y
100%.
Yeah.
And listen, we've seen where things like this clearly has not worked. So I don't say that to antagonize, but at this point, you brought in a player that is more skilled offensively from a trade where you moved an asset that was good on the offensive side of the puck, could rush pucks up ice, had the size, had the speed, had a pretty good shot. Um, you bring in a prospect in Carolina that didn't really get his fair chance. Um, got some ice time in the conference final, and there was some promise there overall. It it felt like he wasn't getting reps, and then on top of it, no power play quarterbacking time without Adam Fox. Now, the reason I think it's interesting is because at first my thought was like, well, he's barely played for the club, and now they're going to make him the QB1 of the power play. Like, I just thought that seemed a little preposterous, and maybe um,
I get it.
that's a huge jump, right? Like, that's a huge jump for a player to go from, like, he's in the press box or in Hartford to now he's up with the big club and he's quarterbacking a power play against some of the best penalty killers in the league, or
Or
pro penalty killers that play every
or
night.
or even slotting him in on the top pair immediately. I saw some people saying that they wanted him to do that. Like, that's
Yeah,
that's too much. Like, I absolutely agree there. Like, you can't throw the guy into the fire, baptism by fire. You can't do that. That's
it's
setting him
not
up
a
for
development
failure.
league. non-development league. But I will say this: the counterpoint is that Eric Gustafson. Now he was a NHL pro, for years before he stepped up when Adam Fox was injured in 23-24, and he was like a magician. There's one pass, and the highlights online, folks, and I know everyone will know what I'm talking about. They won in the Prudential Center their first game back after the playoff loss the year before in 23. This was maybe October or November of 23, and Gustafson set up a passing play that was like, to me, mirrored all world. And the counterpoint to what we're talking about is that sometimes it is best to put players in a position where they have to get to that level, and see if they can fill that role. And Eric Gustafson did. Again, NHL pro. He's not someone that's brought in and hasn't been skating with the big club or whatever, but now I see it as give Morrow the opportunity because this isn't working anyway. So you might as well give the opportunity to a kid that's probably laundry day, dude. I feel like the entire conversation, my friggin' laundry's been going off. Can you hear that?
I didn't hear. No, I'm not hearing anything.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I think if nothing's working at all, why not try Scott Morrow and just see what happens? I mean, it can't be any worse than the 5 forward power play group.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that bothers me more is, okay, I understand, like, all right, if you don't want to slot him in on the first power play unit right away, but don't
Mhm.
just healthy scratch him from the lineup altogether. Like, I don't understand that. Like, we know what Vakanainen is at this point in his career. We don't know what Scott Morrow is. Like, Chris Drury acquired him for a reason. We haven't seen what he's capable of just yet. So don't you think like giving him an opportunity to play even more is better for him? There's more upside there. There's room for growth.
Yeah, I
We we
100%
know
agree with you.
we know what Vakanainen is right now, and to me, I don't think it's worth having him in the lineup.
I agree with you 100%. I love the growth we've seen from Matthew Robertson in the short time. I don't think it's really been talked about
Yep.
enough
Yep.
because I don't think he's had like
Absolutely.
one moment in a game that like spotlighted his performance, but there's a lot of small details that I've liked. And I think it's been, since Fox has been out, we've talked about the D group banding together, but I almost feel like at times this season when good things start to come around, not that it's too late, but then it's the next step. It's on to the next. And the D group playing as well as they have, I feel like once Fox went down, the worry was like, oh, how's this group going to do without Adam Fox? He's kind of the only point producer from the back end. They all chipped in. Some of the parts was able to at least keep the team competitive.
Yes.
And now
Yes.
moving forward, now we're back to roster conversation of like, now Robertson's looking good, but why don't we give Morrow a chance? And I agree with you 100%. When you have what was the purpose of bringing this player in? And I go
Yeah.
back to a dark day or two when Calvin DeHaan aired out his thoughts online last season, and it was similar. It's a veteran guy that felt disrespected by the organization because he said the conversation we had when I was brought in is different than how I'm being utilized here. That concerns me because that's an organization thing. That's a relationship
Yes.
thing. So
Yes.
you don't want players treated like that. But at the same time, we don't call the shots. So we're just
Yeah,
gonna
no,
have to wait and see.
we're just watching from afar, man. Like I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's not our decision, but I'm commenting on like what I'm seeing, right? Like it's
Oh yeah.
you you get what I mean? Like he comes in and now he's not playing. Like he's too good for the AHL, obviously. So you're gonna healthy scratch him every night. Like I just hope that's not the case there. I didn't see Vakanainen's stats last night. I unfortunately I had something to go to that I couldn't watch the Rangers game. I did catch the highlights. Seemed like a very thrilling performance there. The 3-goal comeback on home ice. Like I see them go down 3-0. I'm like, oh, here we go again. Another rough performance at MSG, but they were able to patch things up and turn it around. But I mean, does a victory mean you keep the same lineup or can you still make changes? Like I think you should see what Scott Morrow could do against Anaheim. I don't know.
I agree 100%, especially at, an Anaheim team that's pretty good coming in. Um, I think there's going to be a lot more news surrounding a lot of other things outside of the power play for the Rangers. Although it might be a topic of conversation with how Kreider's playing and how they're missing him on that unit. But yeah, I agree. And you see teams that win, they will make adjustments. We saw that in 23-24. They brought in players, and Tyler Pitlick was a player I had interviewed before, seen around. Looked like he was clicking really well with Jimmy Vesey on that fourth line and Barclay Goodrow for like 3 or 4 months. They brought in some assets. They shuffled the lines around a little bit. Matt Rempe came up, and Tyler Pitlick was gone. So
Mhm.
Nick Bonino was gone. Nick Bonino was
Yep.
brought in to be a faceoff guy on that fourth line with veteran experience. He was gone after maybe 3 months, 4 months. So two guys that were integral to the team's depth were away from the team halfway through the season. So yeah, if there are players that can come in and add, you add them in to the
Mhm.
equation. I agree with you.
I'd also want to go back and give some love to Matthew Robertson. I kind of been banging the drum for him to get an opportunity for a while. It's nice to see him able to step up and get a role in like the bottom pair there. Uh, I mean, I'm not gonna say like he's a perfect defenseman. I'm saying like he's doing a really good job. Like there's a lot of the time I just don't notice him on the ice. Like he's invisible, and I guess for a defenseman that's pretty good because it means he's doing his job. Sure,
Mhm.
there'll be some mistakes here and there, but compare that to what the Rangers have been shelling out there on their third pair in previous seasons, plus the salary they've been dishing out to those guys. Robertson's like making league minimum or less than $1 million. Like you're getting
Yeah.
value there. So it's about time like the Rangers capitalize on stuff like that. You see the best teams in the league do that all the time. Tampa Bay is a huge example of that. They always like make good of their AHL fodder, like their age, not even fodder. Like they make something out of nothing, pretty much. Guys that seemingly didn't have a place, they find roles for them because of injury, and if they're playing well, they'd keep them. Like I don't see any reason why to move on from Robertson. He's doing a fine job, in my opinion.
You know what? You hit the nail on the head. I look at it as cost efficiency. And looking at it with the almighty dollar, like Will Cooley, Brodzinski, uh, he's a little bit of a different situation, but Noah Laba, Matthew Robertson, these are all players that their performances at their value, at their age, are really helping this team get along in the salary cap space. So 100% agree with you on that. And it's it is great to see that these players that were prospects, listen, they're not the tier one prospects in the organization that we've seen kind of flame out so often, but at the same time, the conversation of development, I think it's really accurate, but also there are a lot of players from within the organization that have been pleasant surprises, uh, definitely this season. So, yeah, I think Robertson's play is great, and I think that's coupled with some of the other players that have added or made contributions to this team that are making sub a mil, a season. And Will Cooley, he's part of that group. He's at 3.9 with the cap going up.
Mhm.
So, bargain bin guys that are from within. To me, I actually would say it's not like Tampa, something out of nothing, yes, but there's something there. It's just like how can you get the most out of that player? Because sometimes we've seen that it's like blood from a stone. So, but this year it seems like the Rangers have a little more life to them.
Muggsy, you see what Darren Radish is doing over there in Tampa? It's insane.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been like over the course of the last 2 weeks, really, like
He's
2, 3
nuts.
weeks.
I picked him up in fantasy, and man, he's tearing it up. I
No,
mean, that
it's
was
been incredible.
yeah. It's the last thing I would have expected. Like he was a guy that was stuck in the Rangers minor league system for a few seasons. I didn't really think much would come out of that. He goes to Tampa Bay, plays a few years for them and their system, and they call him up and he's like a fixture. He's like a solid top four defenseman there. Like he's killing it there. They're dealing with a lot of injury troubles too, and they're getting older. So having him there talk about like something from what you would think is nothing. Yeah, that's
John Cooper though
I'm with
too.
you.
I mean, when you have Coop, um, you have a coach at his level, like yeah, I think he could coach the Double A Montclair Blues to a Stanley Cup. So overall, man, like yeah, I think no matter what players are on that roster, like he'll get something out of them. So, but no, that is pretty crazy. And I mean, it's funny to see when you look at the stats from the last few weeks, the top defensemen are like McCarr, Hughes, and then it's like Gavrikov, Radish, maybe
Yeah,
Heisman's up there. It's just funny to see like some of those players that you don't expect, but that's what makes everything more exciting is when the league's this tight and players you don't expect to do as well as they do.
yeah, yeah. Like I going back to what you were saying about getting the value from the contributions that the Rangers younger players or not even younger players, like cheaper contract players like Berard and Laba and Cooley. I love that line there. I talked about it on the show last week. I'm a big fan of that line. I hope they keep that unit together. It looks like they've been staying together. What are your thoughts on that pair? And then obviously Rempe's got to come back too.
Well, you know what? Every team, like a championship level team, needs a third line. That's like always something that was hard to, I think, find outside of your own organization. And that's why Barclay Goodrow got paid so much, was because he was viewed as that player for the Rangers
Hmm.
at that time, or just like he was coveted as that player. Blake Coleman, the same thing. Whereas like that Tampa Bay Lightning third line, they were so effective. When you're that deep, it's really hard to defend against. But I think obviously right now we're not talking about championship contention, but to have a third line that's gelling like that, that's forechecking, that brings the energy, they're an energy line, and you need that. It felt like for a long time, long time, you know, in the last 12 months, the team just like didn't have a third line identity. It was like
Yeah.
you had Parson in there at times, and it just wasn't really generating offense. It wasn't really like formidable. So I think
Yeah.
that no matter what is constituted right now with this group, at least they're doing a lot of the simple things right. They're defending well. I'd like to see him score a little bit more. Who wouldn't? But it's good to see, like you said, it's from younger guys. Berard, that's a name I didn't mention before. So I love the unit. I like that they've kept them together too, and they're giving them some run because they earned it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you got to give them the ice time there too. Like you don't shelter their minutes like when you're close in a game. Just run them out there because they can make something happen or at least create
Mhm.
momentum for you. Um,
Yeah, momentum, right? Exactly, perfect word.
yeah. We were he was Muggsy was saying that the third line identity we didn't have that. I think the last one was what was that line? It was like Cooley, Heedle, and Kako at the start of last season. That was
Yeah,
really good, and
and they
until
were good, but nothing else was clicking.
nothing else was clicking on the team after like the first like 6 or 7 games of 6, 7 of the season.
No, 100%. And I like that line a lot. But now in hindsight, I also see like, this is all hypothetical, but like how healthy would Hedo have been all year?
Yeah,
And you also think like I thought
absolutely.
Kako, for a long time, I was really big on like he's doing really well in his role, but the reality was Kako wanted opportunity and he deserves the wrong term, but he wanted to be in a place where he could have opportunity. So I do
Yeah,
get that, but I actually thought he was really good on the third line. So, but I don't know how long that line would have stuck together. But it is funny that like they had the third line, and then it felt like this season until about the last few weeks they didn't have a third line, but everything else started to go in the right direction. So
yeah,
it's the way it goes. You know the Victy Potato skit with the Yankees, where he's like, when it's the pitching, it's the bats. When it's the bats, it's the catching.
yeah.
So whatever's working one day in New York sports, it's always something else isn't.
They were trying to like to squeeze like Parson in and Radish and Sheary into that unit, and it's just like I I don't see it. Like I don't see like the fit there. Like right now, I think they're having an issue right now with where they're putting Radish and Sheary. Like sometimes Radish comes out of the lineup in favor of like Edstrom or whatnot. Again, the issues the Rangers don't have they're missing a right wing in their top six. It goes back to the
Mhm.
Buchnevich thing. Um, Shiri, and I think that's what they've been rolling with is what is it? Miller, Trocheck, and Shiri. Is that's the line that they've been going with past couple
Yeah,
games?
which but I also think Shiri is kind of he's been a lightning rod and I understand sides of it, but listen, if Connor Sheary's going to be the reason the team's losing, then we're missing what's going on the ice. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
I get it.
I 100% understand, but I also think like, hey, let's focus on some of the guys that are making some serious bread here. And Connor Sheary, I liked what Arthur Staples said last week on Tri-State Hockey. Like the plug wants it more, and he not only did he earn his role at a camp over players that had opportunities to take that role. Right, we saw Will Cooley earn his spot 2 years at a camp.
Mhm.
Why did none of the prospects earn their spot over Connor
Right.
Sheary? Now, some would say, well, veteran, whatever, and Sullivan favors veterans, but there's a reason for that. And also, uh, I think it's a tough look to have him on the first line for sure. Like that's undeniable. So, yeah, that don't love that line. But if we're talking about roster construction, like you said, they're still missing, I think, one player, and I really think it's going to be up and down until the trade deadline, which is what makes this year's trade deadline for not only the Rangers, but a lot of teams kind of frightening. Like, well, if they sell and then they don't make the playoffs or like they lose in the first round, then you think like, oh, we could have had 2 first rounders and a really good draft. Or
Mhm.
so there's going to be, I think, hypotheticals, questions, and concerns until, the end of February, early March.
They're treating Shiri as, like a plug and play thing, like, long term, that's the issue that I have is that long term, it can't be the fix there, right? It's been an issue for
Yeah.
so many years, and they just can't fix it. That's what bothers me is, like, they keep cycling through players in to fill in that role, and they just don't have the guy. It's not, like, all Shiri's fault, like, that I'm not saying to your point about they're losing games because of him. Like, that's not what I mean. It's just the fact that they don't have a solution there. I have nothing against
Oh,
Sherry.
yeah.
It's just the fact they don't Chris Drury has not acquired that guy just yet. Long term, that's the issue. Like there were opportunities there. I mean, there's nothing you could do about it now because hindsight's 2020. Like you said earlier, like th- there's no opportunity right now to get that long term fix. You had it, but you either weren't able to do it or didn't do it. So you're stuck with what you got here. Like, and I get it. I get what you're saying. You got to look elsewhere. If you're thinking Connor Sheary is the reason you're losing games, that's a problem there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how
I
people
like what
said,
you
like,
said though about long term.
right?
It's been an issue.
Yeah. Like they just don't have the guy there. You hope it's Perot. You thought it would be Offman. You thought it would be Kako. Lafreniere is on one of the top six lines, like on the first line. Well, who's on the other line? Right? Like whatever you label as the first line or whatever you label as the second line, you're still missing that one guy. You have 5 out of 6 guys in your top six. You don't have a. You're missing one more right winger, like a true right winger
Hmm.
that could
Yeah,
score.
and it's been years. I mean, they had Lafreniere playing his offside for a little while. And I actually thought that contributed. He adjusted so well in 23, 24, but it seemed like everything, a rising tide raises all ships. So it seemed like everything was going their way that year. But it is funny to think that like probably his most successful season was on his offside, and he's not even a natural right winger.
Right, right. Yeah, it was that line. I remember we talked about that. That was World Juniors Lafreniere. We need to see that more consistently.
Uh,
That line was just
yeah,
magic
you know
that
what?
season.
It's funny. I before I came on, I was thinking about that too because I remember that conversation and like that was right before he really started like thriving that year. And it's it is preposterous to see like where he's at and like some of the like he put on that move against Chicago. Now, granted, he didn't finish it, but like you'll see that, and then it's 3 games of nothing. Like
Yeah,
no contributions all over the ice.
yeah. Like the goal he had against Vegas, I believe. Yeah, it was Vegas. That was an insane shot. right under the bar, in and out, perfect shot. He played an awesome game. I thought he played a really solid game against Ottawa too. Um, I thought he was really active, and then again, you'll there'll be a stretch of games where he's invisible. You don't notice him. He's not moving his feet. He's good when he moves his feet, but when he's not doing that, you notice like he's not into the game. He's not into it.
Mhm.
Like,
Likes to feed
that
the wolf.
yeah, you need to like we need to see that more before I'm able to feel comfortable with him as like at least one of the solutions in the top 6. But yeah, Connor Sherry, it's fine for now, I guess. I'll loosely agree that he earned his role. Gabe Pro, I think, is playing really awesome for the AHL. Maybe you give him an opportunity again. I don't know though. What do you think?
Well, I think there's two flips of the coin because it's kind of like the conversation we just had with Scott Morrow, but I just don't think Perot is strong enough. Dude, what is this laundry machine doing over here? I don't think Perot is strong enough, and like I don't think he's like an explosive skater. And the NHL is not a development league, and I think it's funny because like New York's seen trial by fire. We see where it didn't work with Kako and it didn't work with Lafreniere, and now he's too good for the AHL. But like, what role is he really matching up against the McKinnon line the other night? Like, it just no, I don't. Or
Yeah.
last Saturday, no, he's not. He's not matching up against Dallas. He's not matching up against Vegas. So tell me, when he's on the ice, but he has the top line potential, top 6 potential, but at the same time, like at this moment, I don't think you could trust him in those positions. And the way the third line's organized right now, or at least the way the team's structured right now, you don't really want him on the third line. And then you also don't want him to be playing hard checkers every night,
On the
like
yeah.
third line, 4 checkers and, you know, another team's dogs. So I feel like it's just there's a few parts that, parts of the conversation that I'm skeptical about playing him in NHL minutes. But then there's also part of me that's like, he comes up and what if he lights it up? Uh, I also think just like with Brennan Hoffman, though, you risk a lot, like that screenshot of Hoffman in front of the net, passing on that opportunity. Like, I think that really hurt his perception around the league, and it also made it harder to deal him, which they haven't yet. So, yeah, I obviously they wouldn't be dealing Perot, and I think there's a lot more potential there. But at this point, yeah, I just don't know if it's the right time for Perot to come up.
Yeah, so, like, when would be? Like, would you have to see which games he would he would be a good matchup for? Like, it's tough because the Rangers are trying to make the playoffs. So, if you feel like you're putting him at a disadvantage, then you just gotta keep him in the AHL, but if he's too good for the AHL, how long can you keep him there?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Like, I don't think when we talk about him checking, he needs to be like a huge heavy checker. I think what Gabe Perreault needs to integrate into his game, um, which he's 20 and he's 5'11". Like, he's not a big player, he's not a big guy. But not only putting on some weight, but it's also strength training in inside edge and forearm wrist strength. If you see Panarin, he's maybe had 2 hits that were significant in his time as a Ranger.
Mm.
But when he forechecks, when he's stealing pucks, it's all in his wrists and his forearm strength. Now, obviously, he's built and he's strong, but for a player of his size, and I see his frame is similar to Gabe Perreault, where Gabe Perreault on the forecheck, he's going to be stealing pucks, but he needs the speed, the explosive speed to get to pucks, to hunt them down, and yeah, take some contact, but also be able to steal pucks and get to the inside of players to make plays and poke check and things of that nature. And granted, I don't watch the AHL every night, but I get the sense that at least from his showings at the NHL level, that he's not there yet. And I think it's close. I think it's like a 90% baked pie. We love a good apple pie, but we don't like an apple pie when it's not ready. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's parts of his game that I've seen in some players of his. Colin Graff, when I covered him for Quinnipiac, he played a similar style too, where it was like he's a great checker, but that doesn't mean like physical check, meaning just like he's a great forechecker. He got to the inside of pucks. He used his inside edges to dig in. It was all in forearm strength. So I think it's about stealing pucks. I think it's about getting to the inside. I think it's about having that speed to win puck races. I don't think Gabe Perreault's there yet, and I just don't see where he fits into the Rangers lineup at the moment.
Mhm.
Although it would be super ideal for him to be ready to take that spot for Connor Shearer. You would love that. I would love that. But I just don't think that's where he's at this moment. Maybe by March, who knows?
What you're saying, it's like aggression, like being aggressive on pucks, and that would fit him well in the system too, because it's such a forecheck heavy style that Sullivan runs. So, I mean,
Hmm.
I guess it makes sense that that's what the Rangers. I would hope that's what they want him to work on. I hope that's
Well, Joe,
what he
you
could do.
tell me. You tell me, were you surprised by Gabe Perreault's speed?
I mean, not really. I don't think.
Did you
Like,
find he was strong on pucks when he was up, with the big club for the two games against Nashville and
I
Tampa?
didn't see too much from. I didn't see too much of that. Yeah, like it was hard to notice. It was hard to notice him when he was playing there.
Obviously those seem like pretty pointed questions now that we've had this conversation,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I tell my like when I'm looking in the mirror and I'm thinking of these ideas for when I'm talking to you, when I'm talking to everybody in Rangerland, it's like let's keep it simple. And I think at the end of the day, he didn't blow everyone's socks off. So at the same time, like, does every prospect or young guy blow your socks off every time he's brought up? No, but at the same time, like, this is a player that I think has that capability if he's ready for the NHL level.
So this is an interesting conversation. So you're not even just looking at it as like, all right, the Rangers are failing his development like always because they don't want to put him into the role. Like they don't want to let him grow and let him fail. Like you're looking at it as you're looking playing like devil's advocate saying there must be a reason for why the Rangers don't want him up there, like why they are constantly running out Sheary and Radish out there, right? Like they must feel that he's not ready yet. So and that makes sense. That's something I appreciate too. Like you gotta look at the other side instead of just rushing and say like, all right, the Rangers suck at developing, like always. What else is new? All right, there's got to
Mhm.
be a reason for it. Like,
Well, I will say this though. I mean, part of that is like knowing that Perot might not have been ready for this season. But at the same time, I think the conversation in camp was like, I don't think when Connor Sheary was playing in the preseason, he was playing well, but I think most folks were anticipating like, all right, he might be our call up. He might be the first call up.
mhm.
And listen, I think folks, there's no sense in convincing at this point folks that are on one side or the other. But I think for anyone that's on the fence, it's like I do think there are two sides to this, and there is a failure too. And I think understanding where he was at before the season, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, like
Like that is on
he
the Rangers organization to know, like, is he coming into camp and like he could be a lock for the team? And obviously you have to give everyone their run and you can't predict everything, but it didn't seem like he was like at least coming in the first few days of camp, it didn't seem like he was a lock to make the roster. And I think unfortunately at that point, the Radishes and the Shearies of the world, like, we're probably gonna earn that spot over him.
it wasn't as much of a lock as like Laba was, you know what I mean? Like I was just
Yes.
like, "All
He
right, Laba
forced
looks
his way.
really good." You know, like, it
Hmm.
looks like he worked on his game, like, I've never seen the guy play, he looks really solid and stuff like that. And then, like, Perreault and Hoffman, I didn't really see it that much. So, in terms of earning the opportunity but I will say in previous years, I did see, like, there were times where Hoffman was playing really well in at a camp, and I thought for sure he had a shot at making the team, and ultimately, that's not what they decided. Like, there were parts
Hmm.
to his game that we were seeing the offense, we were seeing the aggression, the forecheck and that stuff, and I felt like in previous years that the Rangers could have used that, but they just decided not to in favor of older guys.
Hmm. Yeah, and Brendan Othman, I mean, he had a run at the end of 24, 25. like 22 games. He didn't have a point. Now he's playing on the fourth line with Matt Rempe, and they were impactful at times, but he did, or maybe he had 2 assists
Yeah, I think
overall, but
yeah.
it was unfortunate because he's been in the camp. He was playing in the Rangers camps for like now it was like 5 or 6 years, and unfortunately, I think it's almost time to consider him just another player that, like you said, the organization, whether it was development or panning out or his execution at that level, it's still in my book a failure. So I think sometimes the development talk is very interesting. Even some of the folks I talk to, Steve Ellis from Daily Faceoff, like when I ask him for a concrete explanation of like a good development system or a good development plan, like there isn't one, and that's what makes it so confusing.
Yeah, I think if I had to guess, right, a lot of fans would look to other organizations and say like, "All right, half the guys this team drafts turn out to be NHL roster players. What are they
Yeah.
doing differently than us?" Like, they're quick to point the finger at the other team, but then it might just be like maybe they got lucky, right? You don't have an explanation for that. So I guess there's that variable that we're not accounting for. Because I'm one of those to do that. I point to Tampa Bay all the time and see like, well, you know, they make something out of nothing. Like I said it before, they have a lot of guys that come up like you don't think they're much, but then they turn out to be really good players. Like there's so many like Perbix and I don't even know, like, Gord and Tyler Johnson and, like, all these guys that you didn't think that they would be much of anything, and then they turned into some Andre Palat in years prior, I'm talking about.
Hmm.
John Cooper's a great coach. I don't know.
Well, you know what, Joey? You know what? I think it's funny. I talk to Stat Boy Steve about this all the time. I think the concern with the organization is that the best teams, the cream of the crop that are always competing and have been in contention window for 10, 15 years. You look, Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby, number one. The Chicago Blackhawks, Taves, then Kane.
Mhm.
You look at those teams, you look at the Panthers. Well, my argument has been, well, a lot of the players on the Panthers weren't, from the organization. They made a trade. They traded a 100-point player they drafted for Matt Tkachuk, and they've been in 3 Cup finals and won 2. But at the same time, you look and you say Barkov. He was a top pick that ended
Mhm.
up being one of the top centers in the NHL. So even though their goaltender wasn't they paid $10 million, wasn't from their own organization, a veteran guy, and some of their players that are depth guys, certainly I think better than the Rangers depth, but like Luostarinen, Lundell, those are players that to me mirror like what Will Cooley is to the Rangers organization. Really good homegrown talent, but he's playing on the third line. Sam Bennett, Reinhardt, they were actually failed draft picks of other organizations.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, the player that is consistent through years of contention. Now for the Panthers, it's a start, but Tampa Bay, Kucherov, although he's a third rounder, Braden Point, he was like I think a fourth rounder.
Yes.
Those players though are still like driving the bus. You think of Stamkos, obviously he was the heartbeat for a long time there, and he was a top pick. So I think where folks are frustrated with the Rangers isn't development necessarily overall, top tier development. And I do understand that. Like you think about Kravtsov, ninth overall pick, a winger. It seemed like he could be this, fantastic goal scorer in the NHL.
Mhm.
And that was more than bad. That was a Broadway drama story. So a tragedy. So yeah, I
Good way
do
of
think
putting
that
that.
when yeah, like when you look at other organizations, the Rangers have a lot of things in place that are similar to playoff team, and we've seen it. This isn't a team that hasn't gone anywhere. They've been to conference finals, they've won President's trophies, and their own division. But at the same time, it feels like they're missing someone on offense that's driving the bus, and it's hard to look at other teams that have those homegrown talents, those first overall, second overall top picks that are doing that around the league. And pretty much, I would say the only player that probably hasn't gone too far, but has his own, closet of trophies is Austin Matthews, right? So in the last 10 years, how many guys are really like failed first overalls? Like Taylor Hall's bounced around, but he's found a way to keep himself relevant. So maybe in some sense, but Nail Yakupov and maybe Ryan Nugent Hopkins, he had 100 points a few years ago, but
Glad.
it didn't matter because Edmonton still has two of the best players in the league.
Yep. Ekblad, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah, that's fair.
it's like truly is like a crapshoot. It feels like sometimes because you'll have years like where you'll have Bedard, right, or Matthews or McDavid, and then like is Macklin Celebrini gonna crack through? And this year it looks like he's doing amazing. Right,
Hmm.
maybe making a run for Team Canada. We don't know.
Hmm.
Then you'll have like Owen Power, and Buffalo is I mean they're like perennial losing team. Like unfortunately for them, right? So I don't know what to make of it. So like if the Rangers get the first overall pick and if they don't make the playoffs and they win the lottery far in advance, if they get the chance to draft Gavin McKenna, is he a foregone conclusion? The guy that's going to drive the bus offensively for the next 15 years. We don't know that. You
Hmm.
truly don't know.
It's unfortunate because, like, when you look at the last decade, that's been the case for most teams.
Yes.
It just hasn't been the case for the Rangers. And they drafted a player that I always say context matters. Like at that time, look up Alexi Lafreniere's draft profile on the internet.
Mhm.
I was looking the other night, like the way they talked about him as a prospect was crazy. So I think for fans, yes, I understand now it's at this point 6 seasons later. You can't be holding on to that. But at the same time, understanding the way they talked about Kako and Lafreniere before the draft, like that's why I think I have a little more of an ear and I won't just hear, but I'll listen to folks that have something to say about those two because it's like, well, I do understand. We were all in that boat listening to these conversations. It's got to be in there somewhere.
You're saying
And
like they
granted,
didn't pick him, they didn't call him a generational talent, right?
well, they call Alexi Lafreniere, they called Kako a 50 goal scorer with no flaws in his game, and they called Alexi Lafreniere generational.
They
Like
did. Yes, yes.
that term, like it's on the internet, it's still there.
Carries a lot of
So
weight.
it does, and it's not the prospect analysts are so incredible at their jobs. And that's why I think like whatever has gone wrong, it really is difficult to comprehend as the fan base, as league analysts, because Lafreniere was really that good. Now he came from a league that notoriously, like the Q, they'll produce a lot of points. We're seeing that from CHL to NCAA hockey now. Those transfers, like yeah, they might not be putting up the points because of the style of play, a little bit different, junior habits versus NHL habits. But at the same time, his like Lafreniere was pretty much in that category too. Like Kako, it was like no flaws. This you're getting the real deal, and that hasn't panned out. So that is hard to swallow.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. I get it. And I would understand why a lot of people, myself included, would feel like, you know, we were let down. We're disappointed
Why do you
or
think
lied
there's
to.
such a visceral reaction to when he's not scoring? Even now, like we know the player he pretty much is, and yet still, if Zibanejad goes 3 games without a goal, you're like, all right, where is it? Lafreniere goes 3 games without a goal. And I mean, listen, this year he had a 12-game goal drought. That's brutal. But at the same time, it's magnified to such a higher esteem. The bar
'Cause
is so much higher,
'cause he was
even
the
though
first
what
overall
he's shown
pick.
us at the NHL level, like, isn't what the bar was in 2020 when they drafted
Mhm.
him.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Muggsy, this has been a great episode. We're gonna wrap it up here. Any last thoughts before we close it out here?
Yeah, I don't think I got my fair shot in ice cold take here.
Oh, okay, okay. Go ahead.
So
What do you
I'm going for it. I'm going for it. Okay. And this is coming off the Montreal game where they let in 3 goals off the bat. But I think this year is a Vezina caliber year for Igor Shesterkin. And I really think the playing field right now is like Logan Thompson, um, and Ilya Sorokin. they changed their goaltending coach on the island, and he's been phenomenal. But I think the field out there it's a pretty weak goaltending field in the NHL this season, overall. Like in terms of how crowded the pool is for the creme de la creme, the tippity top. I think Igor's playing like that. I
Mhm.
think this is the best we're seeing from Igor since probably 23, 24 was solid. He had a really strong team in front of him. I would say his best season was 21, 22. He won the
Yeah.
Vezina that year, but I think part of that was because the team in front of him, as you mentioned, they were clawing out wins at times, and he was a major part of that.
Mhm.
So I think this is showing us what he truly can be at his elite level. And there's been flickers where that's not the case all year, but I think this is his strongest season since 21, 22, 22, 23. Obviously, 23, 24, he had, again, a lot of support from his team and the offense. So I'm booking it right now. I tweeted the other night. I had some reactions going both ways, man, but I think he's a top three finalist for the Vezina this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. And important to note, no Connor Hellebuck because of injury. So the
Mhm.
guy that's been cleaning up those trophies left, right, and center the past few years, he's not in it. Right. So I could definitely see Shesterkin winning the Vezina this year. And really important too. Like I don't know. If he keeps playing really well, maybe you get a couple like top 3 Hart Trophy votes. I wouldn't say he's a Hart Trophy. People are gonna laugh at me for that, but with how the
No.
Rangers have been playing, like with their like question marks with goal scoring, this guy's gonna have to put the team on his back, right? Like there's
Mhm.
not a doubt in my mind that there's gonna be a lot of games where he's gonna have to win them himself because the Rangers aren't scoring goals.
Yeah, I think it's like the heart's so crowded this year because, like, I
Yeah.
think McKinnon seems like he's running away with it. Macklin's been really good, like you
I,
mentioned before. Like, there's a
yes.
number of players at the top there. But Joey, I agree. I was thinking about this before I came on, and I was like, mate, you said top three, and I love to listen. You know why? Because that could happen. I'm big on
Mhm.
like let's listen to everyone's thoughts because who knows? And I like the prediction. It's bold. I think he'll earn votes. Maybe not top. I don't think top three personally, but I think he's going to earn hard votes. I mean,
Yeah,
there's got to be a few writers out there that see what the
that's
Rangers are, and as long as if they make the or are set to make the playoffs, you know, at the time the voting occurs, it's right before the playoffs. So, if this team clinches at any point before that period of time of voting, I could see him earning some votes, maybe lower level, and but you and I are going to have to keep an eye on that.
yeah, yeah,
Long
like,
time, but
I would say, like, I'm not saying, like, he's gonna get, like, a bunch of first place votes, I'm saying, like, someone give him, like, at least
yeah,
a third place vote. I feel
yeah,
like there would be, like, a straggler or 2 that would be like, "Ah, let me put Shesterkin in at number 3."
yeah. Like just I think he's shown that this year, and I think it's undeniable how important he is to the team. So, and he's
Yeah,
shown that all year.
I think Johnny Lazarus is gonna vote for Shesterkin. He's gonna give him
I
first
don't know
place.
if he has a vote, but
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, we're not su yeah, not sure about that. I don't know, if he's credentialed like that. But yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Shesterkin for Vezina, maybe some heart votes. Pretty good. Pretty good way to close out the show. All right, well, Muggsy, thanks for hopping on the show. Ice Cold Takes listeners, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment if you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys next time.